Hello and welcome to this VetLit podcast. VetLit Minis are a journal club podcast on a range of topics, small animal focused, so you can keep up to date even if you just have a few minutes spare. Today we're talking about antibiotics and pet owner viewpoints on their use in pets. To help us with that, we have Dr. Emma Wright. She's a resident in small animal internal medicine and the first author of the paper Influencing Attitudes Towards Antimicrobial Use and Resistance in Companion Animals, the impact on pet owners of a short animation in a randomized controlled trial, which was published in JAC AMR as open access in 2024. We've also got Dr. Fergus Allerton here, whose recent research focus has been regarding antimicrobial stewardship, and he's led the relaunch of the Protect Me antibiotic guidelines, and he's also a member of ENOVAT. And for those that haven't come across ENOVAT before, that's the European Network for Optimization of Veterinary Antimicrobial Treatment. And he's also involved in many other projects. So thank you both for joining us. I thought it'd be really insightful to speak to both of you at the same time about your study and also about antimicrobial use in general. So Emma, I thought I'd come to you first. What initially motivated you to undertake this study about antimicrobial prescribing behaviours in veterinary medicine?
So yeah, thank you, Chris. And yeah, I guess firstly, thank you for inviting me along to speak on the podcast. I guess one of the main motivators is that we know that antimicrobial resistance is quite widely publicised in human medicine, and it is becoming increasingly prominent also in the veterinary sector. But when we sort of approach this, we haven't traditionally employed a One Health approach. And one of the concepts here was to involve an important stakeholder in this discussion who really hasn't previously been prioritised, and that is the pet owning public. One of the things that motivated me is to sort of involve owners in this discussion and to be part of the conversation around antimicrobial stewardship in order to hopefully sort of get better outcomes.
And one of the comments that really stuck out to me from the beginning part of your manuscript was a statement regarding medical practitioners having a susceptibility to yield to patient pressure, and they might revise their decision to prescribe or not prescribe antibiotics based on, I suppose, a patient behaviour. Do you think veterinarians have that potential to change their likelihood of prescribing based on an owner behaviour in the consult room?
Yeah, so I suppose we've cited a paper on that, looking at sort of pressure from clients as a contributing factor to the prescription of antimicrobials. It's by Smith et al. And it's interesting in that paper that, the pressure is perceived from clients, but the question is, are clients actually really pressurizing clinicians into that, or is that, just the perception in a short 15-minute consultation? And I suppose either way, the outcome is potentially the same in that clinicians are feeling pressurized into prescribing, and hence prescriptions are increased compared to what they maybe otherwise would be. In terms of our study, we did ask owners whether they felt inclined to ask their clinician for antibiotics if they felt they were required and that they didn't seem to be being prescribed. And clients did indicate that that is something that they would consider. So yeah, I guess sort of going back to that perceived pressure, that is potentially a real thing that's being perceived by clinicians.
We've had the non-prescription form that accompanies the Protect Me poster available for the last few years. And this was designed also to try and facilitate the consultation and bridge that gap to help vets explain to owners they haven't forgotten about the use of antibiotics. They're making a conscious decision to withhold them, and to bring the owners on side so that they can hopefully leave the consultation happy not to be given an antibiotic. And Emma's animation is the way to sort of prime them so that they come into that consultation and they were ready and more receptive, hopefully, to that type of message. So we're trying to tackle owners and help them from both sides of that consultation.
Great. And we've sort of talked about the study a little bit. So Emma, do you mind just talking us through the methodology of your study? So exactly what you did, what kind of data you were recording, and exactly how you went about undertaking it?
Yeah, so I guess the main aim really was to create this informative animated film that was appropriate for the general public. And the purpose of that film was to convey a message about antimicrobial resistance and antimicrobial stewardship that was sort of accessible for everyone. And then what we wanted to do was to evaluate the effects of this video on owner attitudes towards antimicrobial use. And the kind of questions that we identified as the most important were to assess owners' awareness of what AMR or antimicrobial resistance is and the importance of it, the likelihood of them requesting antimicrobials from their vet, and also their understanding that actually many common conditions don't require antimicrobials. The animation was designed with input from sort of many of the authors who had varying experiences in both the veterinary and medical fields, as well as sort of expertise in public engagement and study design. And we used a commercial software to help create that. And then we also created a survey for the owners to ask about their understanding as a baseline, and also their understanding after watching the animation. And the survey was designed around this health belief model, which has previously been written about in the literature, and it's a kind of conceptual framework that's used in health behavior research to understand healthcare decision making, predominantly previously in the medical field, and looking at sort of psychosocial and demographic behaviors that are influencing health related behaviors. So yeah, and then we showed the animation to clients at several UK veterinary centres with sort of a mixed population of both referral and primary care practices. And then we obviously analysed the responses to determine whether there was any significance between the owners that had been randomised to watch the animation versus those who had completed the survey without watching the animation.
And to everyone listening, I would recommend watching the animation, which you can find in a link to it in the supplementary material of this study. It's a YouTube video. It's really engaging and actually demonstrates how accessible this complex topic can be for average owners who might not even have any pre-existing knowledge about antimicrobial management. So please do go have a look if you get time. So I've actually just jumped to Fergus and actually just ask you, what did you think was one of the most interesting findings that came out of this study?
Well, I think it's great to see that a short animation, and the video only lasts 1 minute 50 seconds, but it's enough to change people's attitudes. And I think it's not the only thing that we can rely on for antimicrobial stewardship. We still need other educational resources, but this could be something that helps owners be more receptive to the message that we're delivering. And I think there were 20 different questions that we asked or statements that we collected, and 14 of them were different after watching this video. So it conveyed a message that was picked up by owners, and I think that we would love for more practices to use it. And the video is free. It can be accessed via QR code from the Protect Me poster. We've tried to put it out on social media and on YouTube and things like that. And Emma spent time actually getting it translated into 20 different languages. So if you've got a very cosmopolitan client base, you can have it in Albanian, in Greek, in French, German, etc. So we really want this to be something that vets make use of, to see. We're never, well, certainly where I work, we're not always running perfectly on time. So if you've got a few clients who are spending a little bit of time in the waiting room, why not encourage them to watch this little video? And it might help change their attitudes, as we've demonstrated for a short time at least, but maybe enough that once they're in the consult, they'll not expect or ask for antibiotics?
And that actually is a good question, actually, in terms of the application of these kind of videos into real world, but also in your study. So owners walked into practices. They were given the opportunity to enroll, become part of this study. They were able to opt in or out in that moment, and then they were randomized once in. So how did these owners watch this video when they were in the waiting room? Are they looking at it on their phone? Are they watching it on a TV? How was this delivered to them in your study? And how do you perceive that this is going to be available to practices outside of the study? Are you asking owners to watch it on their phone while they wait in the waiting room, or what?
So I guess the concept was that actually many practices have a waiting room with some kind of screen in it, which they're already utilising for purposes. And the concept partly was to use that to convey the message, but for the purposes of a study and randomizing clients, that's not actually very helpful, because obviously then the entire waiting room population would watch a video, and we can't randomize the answers. So the way that we ran the study is that clients would come in, they would be invited whether they would like to enroll in the study or not, and then they were able to scan a QR code on their own mobile device to watch this video. The QR code then randomized them automatically to whether they were going to watch the animation or not. And the questions completed were the same regardless of whether they watched the animation or not. I guess in terms of sort of longer term use, the hope is that clients won't necessarily have to use their own initiative to scan a QR code to do this ongoing, but that actually the video can be more widely publicized now that we know it has a sort of a marginal effect on the owner's attitudes towards antimicrobial use and resistance. And that maybe practices would be willing to show these videos on their website, in their waiting rooms, etc. Yeah.
So do you think there could be a situation, and maybe I'm going a bit too left field and off topic of the project here, but imagine we've got an owner and the concept was about diarrhea in the video, wasn't it? So you've got an owner and their dog has got acute onset diarrhea, and they're now demanding antibiotics for their dog in the consult room. Do you think actually getting those owners to watch the video rather than to verbalize it would be a useful thing to do? So actually to take the heat out of the situation, just say, watch this video and then we can regroup on this topic. Do you think that would be something that could be applied if emotions are getting high, if owners are really demanding antibiotics, but there's a resistance to prescribe them?
Yeah, so I guess that that's a really challenging situation. I think a lot of people will have been in that situation in practice where, you know, the antibiotics worked last time, why can't I have them again? The last vet gave me these, your boss gave me these, etc. And I think that's a very challenging situation to diffuse, and I'm not sure the video will answer that on its own, but I think it can probably form part of the discussion and hopefully would be a useful tool in that scenario, where maybe in this scenario you discuss with the owners, they're having none of it, and you know, either way you end up prescribing or not prescribing antimicrobials, but you could potentially send the owners home with part of this sort of non-prescribing pack to go home with. Maybe they get the pad, they get some more information on antimicrobial stewardship, of which I know there's lots out there, and they can also be signposted to the video, so that when they next come in, you know, they're not on the warpath looking for the antibiotics potentially, and that they can understand your reasoning when the discussion arises again.
So this is a question for both of you, really. Where next with this type of delivery of information for owners? So at the moment, we've got owners watch a video, go into a consult room, get asked to complete a questionnaire. I think it was relatively soon, was it within an hour or so of the consult? So I suppose, where next? Do you think that this kind of delivery of information could result in a long-term change? Is that something you might move into next, or what are your thoughts for this kind of delivery of information going forward?
I think
Yeah.
it's well, I think there's lots of opportunities for this, but it would be really nice to see that these are hypothetical situations, and owners are self-declaring that they would maybe next time I'm in that situation, I won't ask for antibiotics. I'm going to do the right thing. But we're all occasionally guilty of that and committing to things that when we would like to think we would do. What we'd love to see, does this video actually change prescribing habits? And if you are a practice that has this up in your waiting room, does it help? Is it that extra little nudge in the right direction that brings down your antibiotic use? So practices that use resources like this, maybe they will achieve lower prescribing rates than practices that are left in that situation that you mentioned, where owners are in the consultation room forcing you to hand over your antibiotics at gunpoint.
And Emma, do you have any intention to do anything in this sphere going forward?
So I find it a really interesting area, and I also find the sort of the vet owner interaction and One Health approach sort of very interesting. I guess one of the challenges with doing a study that looks at an impact of a video longer term is, we've captured the client in the waiting room for that visit, but then to follow up on that in a meaningful way is quite challenging from a questionnaire based point of view, because again, it would be all sort of intention based. But I suppose what could be interesting, like Fergus alluded to, is to look at the overall prescription rate in a practice following a period of the video being shown, and whether that has any impact, or potentially determining if clients are coming in for an appointment that looks like antimicrobials could be prescribed in some aspect, that they get sent the video prior to that, and the prescription rate is compared to a practice average prescription rate potentially. But I suppose the feasibility of that is quite challenging, and would have to be thought carefully about how you would perform that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of scope to look into change longer term. But I really love the concept of this study. I really love the design, the development of the video, how accessible it is for so many different groups of people. You can just watch it and the words are on the screen as well. It's verbalized if you want to listen to it. I think it's a really accessible way to try and deliver some information. And what made it really, really accessible is how short it was. 2 minutes only resulted in a change. I thought that was absolutely fabulous. Well, sadly, that is it for today. So thank you both for joining us. The aim of VetLit Minis is to make veterinary literature accessible, and the aim of VetLit as a whole is to make the veterinary literature accessed by our veterinary community. And hopefully this podcast has secured that in some small way. Remember, you can always definitely find an article to read that interests you on the vetlit.org website, so please do check it out. And please also sign up for the email updates for routine updates on the most recent manuscripts being published. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day, and bye-bye for now.